Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Well, the news. Alright, let's see. First of all, a huge thanks to Brother Steve Harrison for mentioning me in the editor's column in the Missouri Freemason magazine recently. It was humbling, and I am so grateful not only for the mention, but also for a copy of the book, which is now proudly housed in my library. Brother Steve Harrison's book is called Freemasonry Crosses the Mississippi. It's a great book, and it's available on Amazon. Links can be found on our site's bookstore as well. But I know you're listening, Brother Steve, and I just have to say thanks for being a constant inspiration for me and countless others in the noble craft that we call Freemasonry. Also, with the new launch of the new Apple iOS 7 for the iPhones, iPod Touches, etc., I'll be working on creating wallpapers for the app subscribers which react using the unique dynamic layered feature that they're now touting on the Apple devices. More on that as it develops. I have also launched a new service for you guys. I have received a few dozen emails about getting specific episodes on CD, so I decided that I would offer this. Basically, you can click the link on the website, and for a donation of $4, I'll send you any episode of the show on a CD. The requests I have had for this service were primarily for older gentlemen who cannot make lodge meetings any longer and are not very tech savvy, so a CD gives them a great option to listen to the show for some Masonic interaction. Again, it's all on donations, so make sure that you let me know what episode you need when you complete the transaction. So you'll click the link and they'll be automatically generated $4, and then underneath that you can click a button, and then you just type a little message to me and let me know which episode it is that you'd like. And the best for last. I was saving this news for October, but Brother Creason let the cat out of the bag the other night, so here it is. Starting immediately, or as soon as we get enough material set up, the Midnight Freemasons will be a section in Brother Cory Sigler's The Working Tools magazine. I cannot tell you just how excited I am for this. So, there it is, the big news. The Midnight Freemasons in print in the biggest, independent, and longest-running contemporary Masonic magazine on the market. Speaking of Brother Cory Sigler, I had an opportunity to sit down with him a while ago and talk about the magazine, Freemasonry, and any advice that he had to give to new brothers. As promised, that interview will be in this very episode. So without any further delay, here you go. My interview with Brother Cory Sigler, creator of the Working Tools magazine. All right, everybody. Today we're sitting down with Brother Cory Sigler, creator and the editor of the Working Tools magazine. It's the largest independently run Masonic magazine that is monthly. So, Brother Cory, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Robert. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I finally get to talk to you. I've been waiting for this for a little while. We've had a link up on the WCYpodcast.com for a little bit. And I just realized the other day that I got to update the link to go to your new website, which is twtmag.com. So we're going to do that also as soon as we're done with the interview. Thanks for taking some time out of your day and hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
So a lot of our listeners, if you don't know, like I said, Brother Cory is a brother, and he produces the Working Tools magazine. It's been around for about 6 years.
2006.
Since 2006, so pretty long time. So I guess we'll start from the beginning. How did you get involved in Freemasonry?
Well, I have a handicapped child who required a lot of care when he was born, and a lot of friends, neighbors, helped me out, with the troubles and tribulations of raising a handicapped child. And for years, I always said I want to give back to people like they gave to me, and I thought soup kitchens, help the homeless, blood drive work, how can I help people like they helped me? Because it meant the world to me, the outpouring of love and community when people were helping. And within my research, Freemasonry came about because of all the good work that they do. And I said to myself, well, this is really great. Not only do they do community service, there's also a whole world of history behind it, and mystique and intrigue, philosophy, history. So I said, well, this is the best of all worlds. And I sent a letter to my Grand Lodge, and several years later, here I am.
That's incredible. Yeah, I kind of did one of the similar things, but I didn't become a brother until 2006, 2007, and mine was basically a web inquiry. But what, so you had been a Mason for a few years then, and then you decided to do the magazine?
Yeah, I was Freemason for a couple of years before I started, and what happened was, back then, there wasn't as many books on Freemasonry like you find in Barnes & Noble now. And I would go to the library, try to find every book that I could, and just devour everything that was on the subject. The Internet had some material. It was very basic. Most of it was anti-Masonic back then. And I said, well, you really have to be a self-teacher, self-learner, and not all lodges have the methods of teaching new Masons, and I just wanted more. And I said, well, I think the only way of doing that is doing it yourself. So I found every piece of information that I could, and I started off with a simple newsletter that was a couple pages for my own lodge, and then I posted it on a message board. This was before Facebook took off. There's a message board called Three Pillars, and that was the largest Masonic community back in the day. And I linked it up there, and everyone asked if they could use it for their lodge as well. You know, everyone is hungry for information to share and, you know, to spread the light. So I did that. It was successful, and then people kept on saying, hey, are you going to do another one? So I just started doing it on a monthly basis, and 4 pages became 6 pages, that became 12 pages. And then the next thing you know, I was doing a 15, 20-page PDF, which was very basic back then, looked like nothing that I'm doing now. In fact, I went and I looked at the first couple magazines I did, and it was like looking at the first years of The Simpsons compared to now. You know, the animation and everything was crude, and now it's much more advanced. After all years on a monthly basis, we tweaked and tinkered, and we got to the place where it is now. And we're really quite proud of the work that we're doing. It's high quality. We're trying to get it to something that you find on the newsstand, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah, if you don't know about the working tools, and I didn't know about it until a year and a half ago, and that's just because I'm dense, but everybody I know really, really enjoys the magazine. It was the magazine that people talked about in the lodge. You know, we would get the Northern Light, and we would get, you know, our Illinois Masonic magazine, which is, you know, 10, 12 pages. But I would have, you know, doing the podcast, I'd hear from brothers all around the world, and, you know, they're talking about how they love the Working Tools magazine. And, you know, I got a couple listeners in Australia who told me that they get the PDF version because, you know, it's a lot cheaper to get the PDF version than it is to get print going to Australia.
Oh, sure. Yeah, mailing is crazy.
But the magazine really has taken off, and it's really exceptional. You have thousands of likes on Facebook. What are you guys up to now?
Well, as of today, we're around 16,500.
16,500.
Correct. So, yeah, we're really proud of it. We're getting new likes all the time, and we try to keep the Facebook page very current. We like to share as much information. We have a good time with it. We post serious information, but we also have fun with it too, and we mix the fun and the serious side of Masonry. So I think we appeal to many different types of guys. Yeah,
the articles in your magazine span from absolutely serious, esoteric stuff all the way to adventure type things. You know, Steve Harrison, one of our contributors for the Midnight Freemasons, he used to do a blog called, and he still does it, but it's a private blog now. It's called The One Mason. He wrote the Missouri Lodge of Research. Anybody listening, you got to go out and start your subscription to the Working Tools, because you're going to get this month. Steve Harrison did his piece on Oak Island, so there's a lot of conspiracy stuff and really great stories that come out of that story by itself. And that's running this month, is it?
That was the September issue. It's interesting enough. Our August issue was our biggest seller of all times, and that was on Masonic tattoos. Yeah. And you know, so like we're talking about, we go from some of the serious stuff to some of the, you know, to the fun stuff. And we asked the readers, because I have a couple of Masonic tattoos also, and, you know, showed off, and I got responses, said, well, let's see yours. And we got hundreds of submissions. People were emailing us. My phone was beeping nonstop with emails. And we got hundreds of submissions, and everyone said, well, you know, can you post mine? I want everyone to see ours. So we said, well, we had such a good response with that, let's show it to the readers. The word took off, and it's funny that was our biggest seller of all times.
It's really cool because of that, a really good friend of mine, Brother Eric, we went through our Templar degrees together, or the whole York Rite together, 2 weeks ago. He tells me, oh yeah, I got a Masonic tattoo. And I said, what? Like, cause I've got tattoos, I don't have any Masonic tattoos. And he says, yeah, I got a Masonic tattoo. I said, what made you do that? He goes, I was looking at Facebook, the Working Tools was posting all these. And I was like, really? So yeah, you inspired Brother Eric to get a Masonic tattoo. It's got a square and compass, and then inside of the square and compass is the Templar cross, and then underneath that is the 32, because we both did the York and Scottish Rite together, so he wanted kind of an all-encompassing thing. But it was really neat. I've got a tattoo on my forearm that I'm trying to find a design to cover it and turn it into a Masonic tattoo. But yeah, if you guys are on Facebook, check out some of those past posts on the Working Tools, and you'll see all these really, really awesome tattoos. There was one that was just phenomenal you had posted. I remember it was somebody's back, and it was different than the rest. It wasn't your typical square and compass. There was like a top hat. It was almost like a past masters thing.
Mm-hmm, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, it was black ink work.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So, there's some great Masonic publications out there now. And like we said, most of them are run by organizations like the Northern Light, which is the Scottish Rite's Northern Masonic Jurisdictions magazine, various state Masonic magazines. And what sets yours apart is that it's independent. When I started the podcast, I didn't ask anybody, I just started doing it. And then later on, I ran into a little bit of, I wouldn't say trouble, but I ran into some questions that I couldn't readily answer, which were, I was asking for people, to come on the show, and I said, well, do you have the permission of your Grand Lodge to do the show? And I had no idea I even should have asked, but I went around it the right way, and I did talk to my Grand Master, and he gave me permission to do the show. And did you run into any kind of problems like that with your Grand Lodge when you decided to do the magazine?
Not at all. Grand Lodge in New Jersey is very supportive of it. I have a great relationship with them. In fact, I'm now the editor of the New Jersey Freemason publication. So I'm the editor of the Grand Lodge of New Jersey publication, that's a quarterly publication, and then editor-publisher of the Working Tools magazine. So they're very familiar and aware of what I'm doing, very supportive of it, and they brought me on to kind of bring the New Jersey's magazine to a more updated, contemporary publication for the readers. So absolutely the opposite. They've been very supportive of what I'm doing. But you see, when I started, social media really wasn't as strong. Podcasts weren't really the norm and everything. So it was a little bit different because when I started the Working Tools, there weren't any other contemporary Masonic magazines
everything
out there.
Newsletters, and we had short talk bulletins, I think was pretty much it.
Actually, let me correct myself. There are other magazines out there. I don't want to give that misrepresentation.
Sure.
There are other magazines on a quarterly basis. I was talking about more of an independence on a monthly basis, so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't offend any other great magazines out there.
Sure. So of course, we all know that being a Freemason, everybody always asks what the secret of a Freemason is, and I always tell my friends it's the secret of managing your time. We were talking a little bit before we started recording the show, and I asked, how much a lot of the work goes into it. My question was going to be, what is the hardest part about publishing a magazine be? And I have a feeling you're going to tell me how much time it takes, but I wanted to put it out there.
Well, there's not enough time in a day. I need probably an extra 2 days in the week and another 7-8 hours in the day. The time is, in the end of the month creeps up very quickly when you have deadlines. And you're right, I could be up at 3 o'clock in the morning typing emails and just thinking about ideas and saying, oh, I forgot about this article. I had to call this person tomorrow. I had to email and try to get some information from this person. And, I've got 3 kids and full-time job and then lodge and then everything else. It's just, but you're right. You have to manage your time and you have to prioritize and you have to manage the people that help you out. And, but, we tell worshipful masters they have to delegate and get the officers involved to help out. And it's the same thing with doing the magazine. I have a good staff of writers on a monthly basis, and you have to manage them in a way. And You have to understand that they're doing it on a volunteer basis. However, if they gave you a commitment, you expect them to follow through with it. And you have to remind them of deadlines, and you have to remind them of the work that they promised, and, it has to be to a certain quality. But so far I've been very lucky with my team, and they've come through every single month with flying colors.
Yeah, the magazine is phenomenal. You guys, the layout, we were talking earlier.
Well, let's give a shout out actually to Conrad Frankowski in England, who is a new brother. He's a EA in England who asked if he could help out with the layout. He's a graphic artist over there in England, and without him, I don't think we would be anywhere where we are today. He has come in, and he just does fantastic work, and you ask him to do something, and 30 minutes later, he's like giving me 10 different options, and without him, I would be in trouble. He's my savior. So that's Brother Conrad over in England, eh? Yep, Frankowski. Very, very cool. Well, thank you for that, Brother Conrad. I know everybody appreciates the magazine. It really is something that you might not find on the newsstand at Target, but at a bookstore where they have specialty magazines, it's that caliber. It is that caliber. You could definitely... That's what we're working on. I am working with the idea of getting distributors to try to get it into more of a distribution channel. But right now, it's getting to newsstand quality, and that's what our goal is. Well, kind of digressing a little bit, I had to say thanks because back in 2011, and I mentioned this on the Facebook page also, in 2011 you mentioned the Whence podcast in the magazine, and you even told me that you were going to do it on the Facebook message that you had sent me. I acknowledged you, but I had no idea what the magazine was at that time. And so about a month and a half ago, I finally saw the article that you wrote for the first time, and I just wanted to say thanks to you for the good review and the mention on the show, because I want everybody to know that in the very beginning, we had only had about 4 months of episodes out, and in that time, it wasn't regularly releasing every Monday. It was kind of sporadic. And at that early time, you were very gracious, and you mentioned us. I know we got some listenership out of that. So you're very kind to me, and I just wanted to take a second to say thank you. Oh, that's my pleasure. Well, I kind of feel it's my duty in a way to promote brothers who are taking an art form and trying to do good for the fraternity, whether it's podcast, another magazine, someone who is bringing getting lectures into a lodge for symposium, or, photographers, people that make clocks, woodwork, anybody that takes an art form and tries to progress Freemasonry with their art. I feel it's my duty to promote as much as I can so other people could share with it. Yeah, and I feel the same way. There's several guys out there that are, doing little things here or there. There was a guy that sent me a bookmark that he made. It's just a cloth bookmark, and he's a guy who's in Turkey, and he makes bookmarks, and he somehow got my address. I didn't question it, but he got my address. He sent me a bookmark, and of course, I had to put a link up to that on there because it's fantastic, cloth bookmark. I mean, whatever people are going to do to promote the craft, and I thought it was great. Back to your magazine, and we know you have contributors and stuff. So how many regular contributors do you have right now? We have about 10 to 12 regular, with, I would say, maybe another 5 to 10 semi-regular. And then, interestingly enough, you would think that getting content and submissions would be one of the hardest part of working the magazine. Right. It's not. I get, and that's why I'm checking my emails at all hours, I'm getting submissions all the time. And that's another thing. When someone wants to start writing, I feel it's our job to help them get started and tutor them and get them to a point where they are, progressing and becoming. I've had so many different writers when they first started, it was weak, and then keep on encouraging them. And as they do it more and more, you just see them grow. And I'm almost like a proud papa there, where, they've gone from simple writing to just really elegant pieces of art. And submissions have been great, so I'm lucky with that. Yeah, but we have a good staff of regular guys who are there, and they're really becoming something, too. Not only just writing for the magazine, but if I can give some more shout-outs, we have John Nagy, who has written 5-6 books, building series. Scott Schwartzberg in Florida has world-class lectures in his Boynton Beach, Florida lodge on a regular basis. Let me see who else we have. Paul Smith, just in New Hampshire, just hosted another symposium that was attended by hundreds and hundreds of people. Michelle Schneider is a symbologist who has traveled the world with her symbology and lectures and books. So I'm really proud. I hope I didn't forget anybody. Robert Cooper, who is the curator of the Grand Lodge of Scotland Lodge and Museum, writes for the magazine. So our writers are just really getting out there and just spreading more light to everyone, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
That's great. That's great. I am familiar with quite a few of those people. I have heard that a lot of people get their start right there in your magazine. I have to thank you also for that, for giving those people a voice and letting them bloom. That's a few words. Another thing, this is a podcast, and I had a good friend of mine. I'll give a shout out, Brother Bill Hosler. He was a guest contributor for the Midnight Freemasons also. He's the guy who kind of told me to get in touch with you because an interview with you would be very interesting, and it has been.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and so he told me, because we were talking about the history of Masonic podcasts, and he told me like back in the 90s there was a guy who did a show, and you would email him, and he would send you a CD of the show because podcasts really weren't available. And we kind of got down to it, and he said that you actually had a podcast for a short time also. And so we talked about it a little bit before recording also, but if you wouldn't mind kind of elaborating on the podcast that you had for a little while, what got you into doing the podcast and kind of what made you step away from it?
Well, when I started the podcast, I wanted it to be a compliment to the magazine.
Okay.
And there were some podcasts out there, but podcasts come and go. Yeah. And I wanted to just have another medium to share light. And we did it a little bit different, where it was a live, interactive podcast interview. I didn't want to just talk about some of the different topics. I wanted to have guests on and just do kind of like a talk show. And that's really what it was. It was an interactive talk show. There was no editing.
You had some big names.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, we had Robert Lomas in England. We had a bunch of different authors that came on and talked, and we were really doing well. We were having a lot of fun. It came down to two things: not having time, and there were a couple of good podcasts coming on the circuit, and I said, well, it's in good hands now. If there's a couple of podcasts that are doing really well, let them run with it and let them shine, and let's see where they go. And I knew the podcast world was in good hands.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I got my start in it. I was just a fluke. I bought a podcast production kit and just did one episode with no intent and going on every week. People were kind of rabid for that information. I think that's where they came in with your magazine and with podcasts. And I got my start on the podcast because I used to listen to the only Masonic podcast I had ever listened to was the Digital Freemason with Brother Scott from Canada. And he
I loved it.
Such a fabulous job, and the things I learned from listening to his podcast. He was the first exposure I had to Masonic education of any kind. So it was kind of like I had been a Mason for over a year, but I had no idea about the philosophy behind Masonry until I started listening to Brother Scott. And I had done a couple episodes, and then he put up a message on Facebook that he was kind of moving on and doing his thing, and so I wished him the best of luck in what he's doing now. And I miss the guy. I miss hearing his voice on every week, but like you said, sometimes people got to step on it and move on with what they have in their lives and the time that they have to do those things.
There was also another good one called Ex Oriente with Eric Diamond.
Yes.
I think in Chicago, and I loved listening to his.
Yeah, Eric Diamond. What was crazy was I had started listening to his as well. When I first became a Scottish Rite Mason, he was a name that I had heard. Very interesting guy. He's the only. Anybody listening out there, I'm sure his files are still up on iTunes. You can still subscribe, I believe. And he's the only Masonic podcast who actually had a theme song, a produced theme song.
Yeah. And you know what? I would find myself singing it when I was out and about. It was actually a pretty catchy song. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Well, I always like to ask brothers who come on the show, what advice do they have for someone interested in joining the fraternity? And also, what advice do they have for brothers who come in? For instance, this show is really geared toward continuing education for Freemasons, and then also to bring, if somebody's got a question about Freemasonry, maybe they're interested in it, maybe we can help clarify things, introduce them to the ideas so that they can move along and hopefully petition a lodge. So what advice would you have for brothers who are already in the fraternity and for brothers that are prospective?
Well, for For brothers who are in a fraternity, I would say read, read, read. Try to learn as much as you can, but understand that we're not in the 1800s anymore, and the days of old philosophy club are over, unfortunately. You're going to have to take the bull by the horns, and you're going to have to study on your own. You're given the tools in the lodge on where to research and how to research and what to, how to become a Mason. But after you have those tools, it's up to you now to self-teach yourself. You have to go out, you have to read, you have to devour everything you can, join book clubs, listen to podcasts, read the magazines, try to get as much education as possible, and then spread that way. Keep the light flowing, and don't wait for your lodge to come to you and to teach you, because some lodges just aren't going to do it. And that's just the fact of the matter. I'm not saying anything bad about individual lodges. Just the makeup of different lodges are how it is, and some lodges just are not going to bring speakers in or read a short talk bulletin or discuss things. And if that's the case, do it yourself. Go out and find and get other like-minded brothers together and have a discussion group. Have a book club meeting. It's out there. You just have to find other people.
My lodge just recently, and I have to give a shout out to Pallades Lodge in out of Chicago area. I took advice from those guys to do fellowship after the lodge. We'll go to usually just a tavern or a pub and get a private room and sit around and have a pint. Some guys will just have a soda. We just sit around and we talk philosophy and masonry, and we'll talk current events and all kinds of other things. But I think that is I took that from those guys and I brought that to my lodge. Now what started out as just me and one of the guys going to 6 or 7 guys, which is a start, and it's really conducive, and I think it's great. So what about advice for people who aren't in Freemasonry yet?
Well, I would say know what you're getting yourself into and manage the expectations. If you have someone coming in thinking that it's the Da Vinci Code and there is a holy grail treasure buried in the basement of the lodge, they'll be around for one meeting after he's raised. And if you know that's the case, then you really have to have a discussion with that gentleman. And then, but also know, again, just what I said in the other scenario, learn the tools that we're giving you, and realize that we're going to show you the way, but you're going to have to do some of the work on your own, and realize that you really get back what you put into it. If you're going to come in and not really want to participate, you're really not going to get anything out of the fraternity. If you go in and you have the time and you have the energy and the desire, you're really going to find what Freemasonry is all about and love what it has to offer.
Yeah, I would have to definitely agree with you on all points there. A lot of the guys who follow this show, they update me constantly on the status of their petitions and their degree work, and they're also excited. That's kind of what a lot of them I have to tell people too, is do your research. And I get a lot of guys who have been Masons, Master Masons for 2-3 years, and they get frustrated with their lodge because of a lack of any education programs.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, "What can I do? What can I do? I'm too new to just stand up and blurt out, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that?" My advice to those guys usually is, you're not too young to do that. But maybe approach your masters, your senior warden, your junior warden, talk to them about bringing that kind of thing up. And you'd be surprised when they know that there's an interest in it, how they will react. That's kind of what happened in my lodge, was that they found out that there was people hadn't had the Masonic education in the lodge so long that they grew accustomed to just paying the bills and going home. And now that Masonic education is back, they love it.
Well, there's a big desire for that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes one person to speak up and say, "Hey, I'm willing to do some work," and get this started and become a program director of the lodge. And you'll be surprised of how many of the other guys will gladly let that young energetic brother run with the reins and get the program started.
Absolutely. And because it's been not dead, but it's gone dormant for so long, that you will be surprised, not you or me, but I think the newer Masons will be surprised just how fast people will start to learn who you are if you are the guy in your lodge, the guy in your district who is the education guy.
Mm-hmm.
People are rabid for the information, as I know so many other guys I mean, people that listen to this show, people that subscribe to your magazine, those are the guys, I think, that are movers and shakers in the Masonic community. I think they're really putting things together, and they're going to go on to do bigger things than we are. I'm sure of it.
Absolutely.
But I'd like
and I hope so. I hope they do. I hope they, in the future, someone continues and does bigger and greater things. That's what we want.
Right. I mean, it's kind of that thing. It's like I know my kids, it's inevitable that your kids and my kids, all of our kids are going to end up doing bigger and better things than we'd ever dreamed of. And that's just the order of things. But hopefully they're going to go on and, like I've got 3 boys. I'm, as a dad who's a Mason, of course I want them all to go into the fraternity. So I hope.
For sure.
But anyway, I'd like to thank Brother Sigler for his time and for hanging out with us a bit today. You'll be able to find links to the Working Tools magazine on our website at www.wcypodcast.com. Additionally, you can follow the Working Tools magazine on Twitter at TWTmag. Also, you can check out their website, which is the same thing. It's www.twtmag.com. Is there any other places that we can find you?
Well, don't forget, we're also on the Apple newsstand, also on Google Play, and we are now also the only contemporary Masonic magazine on Amazon.com. So we have the website. Also on Magster.com is where you could have it downloaded onto your device. So you can get it on the Apple newsstand, the Google Play Store, Magster.com, Amazon.com. So we try to find a different method that will make everybody happy.
That's excellent. So you heard it here. You can get that magazine pretty much any way you're already comfortable with. So, brother, I just want to thank you one more time for coming on the show and hanging out with us.
That was my pleasure. Glad to be here with you.
All right, how about that? Brother Cory was just so cool to talk to. I have to say thanks again for your time. It was a pleasure to chat and really pick your brain, and I hope we have him on again soon. Next, I need to mention our Windows 8, Apple, and Android apps. These apps let you listen to the show, but what's different is that they let you download the PDFs of the papers that we read on the show, and also each week there is a new Masonic wallpaper for your mobile device, so check those out. Also, if you're on Stitcher Smart Radio, we offer our show on there as well. If you're not on Stitcher Smart Radio, you can download the free app, register for free, and use the promo code Whence with no spaces. And when you do that, you support the show because Stitcher sends us $1 every time someone uses that code. Now, I believe Stitcher Smart Radio is built into some cars now, like BMW and now the Mazda, so you can check that out if you own either one of those 2 new cars. We also have a donation button set up on the site if apps aren't your thing, but you want to support the show. It's run through PayPal, and it's totally secure. And that's also how the episode on disc is run as well. Lastly, Onnit Labs for some great supplements like Alpha Brain and amazing protein powders and bars. Just go to our website, www.wcypodcast.com, find the links for Onnit, and you can click those, and they'll take you to the Onnit stores. When you check out, you can also use the promo code WCY, and that'll give you an additional 10% off your order. They throw a little bit back toward us, help support the show, keep the lights on, etc., etc. And again, all the links to anything I talk about on this are going to be right there on the main hub, www.wcypodcast.com. Next is this week's famous Freemason, Pierre Charles Lafont. Born August 9th, 1754, and he passed away on June 14th, 1825. French-born American architect and civil engineer Pierre Charles Lafont established a successful and highly profitable civil engineering firm in New York City and is best known for designing the original layout of the streets of Washington, D.C. in 1791. Now, I know that name conjures images and memories of when you watched a History Channel or a Learning Channel special, or History 2. Any number of programs that those channels have run about Freemasonry and how Pierre Charles Lafont basically laid out the structure and the design for Washington, D.C. to mirror some huge modern-day Nazca lines, but this formed with a city instead of in the sand and with rocks. And what most people find disturbing about the design that Pierre Charles Lafont created is that they think that there are demonic symbols or the square and compass or any number of wild and crazy theories about the streets in Washington, D.C. But I'll leave that up to you to form your own opinions. I can tell you right now, the Satan worshiping stuff is all garbage. So anyway, that's it for this week. Please check us out on Facebook and follow on Twitter at Whence. Check out the Midnight Freemasons blog at www.midnightfreemason.blogspot.com. Check out and go get a subscription to the Working Tools magazine. Additionally, please check out our podcast partners, Brother Whence and his show, The Winding Stairs. Also, his fine art at MasonicFundraiser.com. And you can follow him at Winding Stairs 33 on Twitter. And let's also keep Brother Rob Lewis in our thoughts as he defends our country. He's overseas in Afghanistan right now, and I know let's thank all of our brothers and sisters over there serving our country. Brother Rob's podcast is coming back with new episodes soon, which of course is the Far From Centered podcast. In the meantime, as I said before, you can catch Brother Rob Lewis's musings on his blog page, Far From Centered, Love Me When I'm Gone, or in Iron Mike magazine. You can follow him at FFC or at Robert P. Lewis on Twitter. Check out our Masonic businesses, PB&J Water, run by Brother Jeff Koch, for all your H2O needs. Fraternal Ties for the best Masonic neckwear anywhere around. Again, I don't get paid for these apps. These are just awesome guys who have awesome products and awesome customer service. Until next week, stay on the level for Whence. I'm Robert Johnson.